for my generation, I feel like a lot of us feel like we were scammed into taking on a lot of unnecessary debt, going to school, getting student loans when we get useless degrees. We have to have nice cars. Everyone has to have a car, so you take out a loan for your car. And it's the thing to buy a house, and apparently that's a good store of wealth, which it can be, but not necessarily, right? So people take out mortgages when they don't have the income or when they should be renting. And people are in dire financial straits. They're misusing their credit cards, going to huge amounts of debt, and they have to work, but they're doing stuff that they hate again. So it's not so much we don't want to work hard, it's just I thought it would be going towards something. You just feel trapped a little bit. So there are some lazy people that just don't want to contribute, but then there's another subsection of people, I think, that want to do something more fulfilling.
And it is an exciting time right now, right? With the technology, with the AI, the robotics.
You can make millions on YouTube or OnlyFans.
You know,
there's so many ways of making income.
We're traveling to other planets, soon, supposedly, So that's got to be exciting for your generation as well.
Well, it's exciting, but it's also confusing. Like, one of the new advents is social media, right? But a lot of social media, we're necessary evil, right? Why is it a necessary evil? Because it makes people depressed.
Well, that's our communication right now. Right? That's how people communicate.
But it hurts people a lot of times too. People get, false sense of accomplishment, either because they're getting attention unnecessarily, or other people are getting attention or buying it.
Do you think we're going to learn from it?
I think long term, yes. Because we usually do.
I'll give you an example. My 13-year-old, who just turned 14, I think. Damn, is today his birthday? No, tomorrow. Whoops. Happy
birthday.
We already celebrated it the other day. He had a bunch of friends that took him out. Nice. So part of my deal is with him and him and his brother, my 12-year-old, is you don't get your phones if all of your classes are not 70% or higher. I don't ask for an A. I don't ask for a B. I'm not that parent. I say do the best you can, but all your classes have to be 70% at a minimum.
Right.
I don't care. You get 100, that's great. You get 70, that's great. Anything in between. Or you don't get your phone. That's the consequence. So he got all his grades up to above 70. They were all above 70. Gave him his phone. Then his grades went back down. And I said, what happened, man? You were on that damn phone, weren't you? And he said, you know what he said? He said, yeah, I was on TikTok, man. He's like, man, he's like, it's so addicting. I just I sat on there for like 4 hours. He's like, I was doing it every night. It only lasted like a week, because as soon as one of his grades went down below, I said, nope, give me the phone. And that's when I asked what happened. So he's like, I don't even want my phone back.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't even care. Like, he uses our phones if he wants to call his friends and stuff, like we did back in the day with the house phone.
Yes. Nice.
And he doesn't even want it back, because he's like, I don't even want it back. He's like, if I get it back, I don't even want to go on those apps.
Yes. And so it's new stimulus that just takes time to adapt for. I think if you grow up with it and you're sort of aware of where it can trip you up and distract you, versus when you can use it as a tool and an asset. Because, I mean, just like with money, phones, internet, those are tools which can be used for malevolent, negative, or just wasteful purposes, and they can also be used for positive, productive purposes. And that's really good that your son's sort of starting to be able to parse, like, okay, you know what, TikTok, this is addictive, and I recognize that. And so, because I was actually a lot like your son, where I didn't even want my phone. Like, I had friends who had cell phones. I'm like, I don't need a phone. My parents made me get a phone because I would walk home from school, and, it's good to have for emergencies, right? It's good to have a phone, communication. But we didn't have internet in our phones back then too, so it's a little different. So that's good if he's already showing signs of that discipline and self-control, and that, that internal understanding of, is this productive? Is this not? And then it's good that you have that's a nice, easy rule too. I like that with, just get 70% or above in school grades. That makes sense.
I think it's fair.
Yeah, totally.
They try to argue with me and say, because I think at their school, 65 is a C.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but 70 is easier.
I'm asking for 70.
Easier number, yeah.
I'm asking for 70.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, he means it too. They come down here every once in a while, and they're like, "Yeah, my dad took my phone. My grades were low," and I was like, "Oh yeah." And he goes, one of them told me once. He was like, "Yeah, but like a D, you can pass with a D." And I said, "Yeah." Somebody told me that too once, and then I went to college and I had to take pre-algebra. I had to take it again, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then there's a difference between, because you can get good grades and be an idiot, right? Maybe not an idiot, but like you can regurgitate information and get A's. But there's a reason why there's the expression A students work for C students and B students work for the government. Long term. C's get degrees, D's get degrees.
Well, nowadays you can cheat. You can use AI to write your papers. You can you can cheat. I mean, you could have a device and an earpiece, and
so moving forward,
you can cheat so much.
That's why it's becoming so much more important for people to learn critical thinking skills, right? And be able to parse out how to think and how to gain information, because our generation is bombarded with information constantly, all the time. And the struggle isn't so much now trying to reach out and figure out where do I get information, what library do I go to, what books do I read. Now it's shoving a whole lot, like 99% of the info and the input away, to focus on one particular thing that is sort of aligning with your life goals. That's the challenge for a lot of people these days. Hence the short attention span and why those little clips.
We were talking about this earlier, that now, you've heard the movement. People want to go to a 4-day work week. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like what I'm going to say, but okay, that's fine. You're going to work 32 hours a week or 4 10s, however you're going to structure that. But what are you doing with the rest of your free time?
Yes. Yeah. Are you actually going to invest into something productive, a side job or a business, or are you just going to watch more Netflix?
Yeah, it's a Sunday right now. I've been outside working all morning on the skits. They're doing all kinds of shit. I realized, I better get ready for this podcast. As soon as you leave here, I'm back to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care. I can't sit around and just watch TV and just do nothing.
Yep. I'm going to be, when I go home, I got clients to message, people to reach out to. I got like 2 or 3 people on LinkedIn that actually ask specifically about the planetarium that I have to get back to. But yeah, no, I get it. And then what we were talking about earlier with how many hours are in a week, right? 168. If you work full time, that's only 40. Take into account, let's say, an hour to eat generously. 3 hours, 7 days a week. Let's say you get a full 8 hours of sleep. Add up all those things, an hour for a commute if you travel for work, you're still left with like 50 hours, 50, 60 hours left over in the week. And that's all time. So same thing. People complain about not making enough money. I don't have time to do this. No, you're not making enough time. Or I don't know how to make ends meet. Like, well, how are you investing this extra time that we all have? Because you have time to do things. If you're broke, that's your fault, because you have so much other time to do other things. So, I mean, obviously, I think take the financial aspect, but just like, what are you doing with your time? You don't even have to do stuff that you're making money, but are you doing anything productive? Why do you want that extra day off?
I wonder if it's something you have to go through in life that makes that click for you. I know some people probably have it naturally. Yeah. Some people probably learn it from a really good mentor.
Yeah. Some people just life beats them up enough.
Yeah, and that was the case for me. Like, I had a rough life, and I mean, not even getting into all the details, but I remember one time I was working in the field I work in, and I was at a project, and I was like, man, this guy and that guy and this, they're not, they're screwing around, they're not doing this. And somebody told me, hey, who knew a little bit about my background, they told me, they said, hey, they said, a lot of people haven't been through what you've been through. They said, so they don't see things the way you see them.
True.
And that made me put things in perspective. I was like, oh, okay, you're probably right. If I hadn't gone through what I've gone through, I may be just like them, just kind of going with the motions, going with the flow.
Yes.
Where now I have this sense of urgency, and I'm like a little more dedicated to like everything I do. Like if I make food, I'm like super serious. If I do anything, I'm like, let's get it done. Let's do it right, and let's get it done. and I'm just full speed all the time.
Yeah, that's rare. That's pretty rare among people, I'd say, who are that deliberate with all of their actions. But yeah, I guess it can happen in various ways, no doubt. But I guess another complaint too that a lot of folks have is because the cost of living has gone up so much relative to income. People aren't making as much per hour, and this is a whole other can of worms of like what's happening in the workplace. But just the fact that, at least in the United States, people aren't wanting to live together. We've got this whole thing where, single mothers are on the rise. People aren't wanting to get married, and families are splitting apart. When families split apart, we need more homes, which means that housing is going to be more expensive because there's higher demand. And there's all types of interesting social factors at play right now where just everyone's really pissed off about the state of the world. Who's younger, at least, like millennial, Gen Z. We're just sort of dissatisfied with how things are, even though we're the wealthiest as a species we've ever been. I think I read something earlier today, like the poorest 0.01% of people, everyone else besides that, lives better than the richest kings in all of history before like 1600. The poorest person on earth today is living better than the wealthiest person alive before like 1600. We're winning as a species right now. This is the best that we've ever been as a species, but for some reason people are really dissatisfied, and that manifests in the things like, I just want, a 4-day work week because I feel like my life is limited and I'm wasting away at this job because I, have to pay off these bills, and things just aren't lining up financially. And I think we're going to get to a point where we're just going to hit a breaking point where things are going to have to realign, and people are going to have to, have a coming to God moment with people's finances and stuff. Because having more time off of work isn't going to solve the problem,
right?
Spending improperly or just stuff like that.
Yeah, like you mentioned, there's a lot of people living to pay off debt. I think there's a statistic I read that said 1/3 of Americans don't have $1,000 in their bank account to cover set aside to cover some sort of emergency. And I think there's a combination of those things where it feels kind of hopeless. Like, we're living well, right? You have houses, your DoorDash and food to your door or whatever, but that's, probably a lot of failed financial education. But then, it could be one thing could happen and then you're on the streets or whatever.
And how scary is that if you only have $1,000 cash set aside, you're richer than the average person in the wealthiest country in the world.
Yeah, most of the world you're richer if you have $1,000 in your bank account.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned something, right, that I think goes back to the structure of our society that kind of affects things as well. Meaning, you need leaders, you need mentors. Mm-hmm. And how do you get those? You don't get those by not having a structure in place in society. Yeah.
You kind of have to prove yourself to earn mentorship in a lot of ways. And part of that's kind of finding your own way, or just seeking it out. You have to deliberately seek out help, right? Because if you don't know that you need help, you'll never ask for help and you'll never receive help. So there's some introspection that needs to happen to get to that point.
But if we don't have a society that focuses on that either, that says, hey, this is a priority for us.
Yeah.
Versus having fun, doing whatever you want to do, being carefree. If we don't have a society that says, hey, why don't you take things a little more seriously? There's a time and a place for everything. There's a time to have fun and there's a time to be serious.
Right. I guess, well, I'm sort of harsh. I kind of just take it in a way that, well, if you choose how you want to live your life, and therefore you're responsible and you're accountable for the consequences of your choices in life.
The outcome.
You're responsible for the outcome. And so for me, it's like, listen, if you're spending all your time partying, or you want to indulge in needless luxuries, or just hedonistic behavior, if you just, if you waste your money, then you think like a poor person and you just deserve to be broke. And if you don't want to do that, then you can choose to change and you can choose to behave better. You can have better habits. You can choose to be wealthier. You can choose to spend more responsibly. You can choose to cut back or sell things that you don't need. You can choose to add more income. You choose. So I have empathy for people in dire straits, but at the same time, once you're educated, you know how like the economic system works, stuff like how taxes work, how business works historically, and then in the modern day. It's kind of like, the information's out there, so if you don't want to pursue that and you just want it, then it's on you. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, you don't want to be serious all the time, so that's fine. I'll still be rich.
Let me sprinkle in a little response to that. Because,
yeah, please.
For people who think that may be coming from a privileged perspective, because it's easy for people to pull that card and just say that. Let me give you an example of me. I mentioned earlier about some stuff I didn't want to get into details about, but I mean, I'll elaborate a little bit on that because I think it's relevant. I spent 11 years of my life being locked up, from a juvenile as an adult. 11 years of my life getting in all kinds of trouble. I was a bad kid, but I didn't have mentors. My dad, he was that guy that liked to party and have fun, and he moved around from state to state. Sometimes I was with him in different states, sometimes I wasn't. I was with other people as a child. But long story short, here I was at 30 years old, 29. Here I was at 29 years old. Yeah, your age. Yeah. I didn't have anything. I remember getting out of the Colorado DOC system, Department of Corrections, and I was at Denver County because that's where they moved the people getting released from prison. They had a little transition building there. I remember Miss Mason, mean lady, and if I was actually locked up with her son, it was crazy. Yeah, she worked for the Department of Corrections.
That probably had to be hard for her.
It was hard for her. Yeah,
I bet.
And I knew her son.
Because sorry to jump in. My parents worked in law enforcement too.
I think
my dad probably worked for DOC. Maybe not when you were there, but so I totally get that perspective of.
Yeah. So the only reason I'm
outside,
saying, if he hears me saying that about his mom, she's handling her business. She actually.
Yeah.
I liked her perspective on things, and I'll tell you exactly from day one. You get out of DOC, you go to this transition place. It's like a halfway house, and she said, "Go look for a job." I said, "How do I get there? I don't have any money." And she gave me a bus token, and I said, "Okay, how do I get back?" She said, "That's your problem. You better be back by 5, or you better be back by 5.
It's harsh, but
or we're sending. You'll have a warrant for your arrest."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, holy shit. So that was me at that age with nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't even have money to get back.
Yeah.
And so what did I have to do? Did I come out and say, I want a 32-hour work week, or I want this, or, the cost of living. I never thought about the cost of living because I was always trying to get. There was times I had 2 jobs. I'd wake up at like 2:30 in the morning to work a job that started at 3 in the morning. No, wait, I had to wake up earlier than that. Anyways, the job started at 3 in the morning, and then I got off at right before noon, and then I had another job that was at noon until like 8 o'clock at night, and I was riding a mountain bike. I was riding a mountain bike downtown, putting it on the front of the RTD buses, and I had a bus pass and the mountain bike. Yeah. And I was doing, because they wouldn't let me drive for a long time. They wouldn't let me drive for, I think it was like at least 6 months. So how was I collecting 2 checks and doing all that and hustling? And I actually bought a house not too long. My first house I bought not too long after that. Nice. How the hell do I get out and buy my first house?
Yeah.
Like it was literally within a year and a half I bought my first house.
Wow. That's impressive. Congratulations.
Other people that were out here that were like, you know why I bought my first house? Because I was like, why? How much is mortgage? Oh, okay. At that time, it was like $1,000, $1,100, $1,200. That was like early 2000s. I bought it in 2023. And I was like, oh, the mortgage on the house was like $1,200. Oh, I'm paying, almost $1,000 in rent. Well, it's basically the same thing. Yeah. And I'm still having to pay electricity and water and, I wasn't paying water, but I still had to pay electricity, cable, all these other bills.
Yeah.
So I was like, why not? It wasn't like, so if rent was like $200 a month and owning a house was like $3,000 a month, then I'd still be renting.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it was just math.
But it made sense. Yeah, the numbers made sense. It wasn't emotional. At the time.
It was math.
Right.
The numbers made sense.
Right.
So I remember when I first got out, I was looking for a job. I think shortly around that time when Miss Mason was sending me out, there was this guy who came up to me. He was younger than me. One of these guys down on 16th Street Mall. You know the type. They're in their 20s. They're just down there, just hanging out. He's like, "Hey, man, you got some money?" And I'm just looking at him like, "Ain't that a bitch? Like, this is what you guys are doing?" Like,
oh, you'll get a kick out of this story too. Just Friday, I think. Because I walked to my gym and I walked to the grocery store. There was a guy outside my grocery store playing the violin. He had speakers set up and he was collecting money. Literally like less than 50 meters away, just around the corner at the entrance to that shopping center, there's always a homeless guy begging for money. Always. And I'm just like, they're so close. And one guy's begging, one guy's actually putting in some work. Which one do you think is making more money? Right? The one who's putting on a show, who's contributing, who's giving something, who's doing more.
Well, I've got some sad news for you. I used to work security at a Target at the Mills, and the people who play the violins at the little PA thing that they roll around, they're part of a group that do it. They do it all over Denver. They've been doing it for years and years, and it's not always real. Multiple, and because I'd have to go talk to him.
I'm glad I didn't give him money then.
You can't solicit at like outside in the parking lot of a Target.
When you say it's not real, what do you mean? They're not homeless?
No, they're not playing the violin all the time.
Oh,
they're pretending
to recording.
They're pretending to play over a recording, and I know this because I would have to go talk to them, and multiple times I'd talk to them, and they would stop, and the music would keep playing, and I'd be like, "What?"
I think I noticed that too.
So how do you know? How do they? If they're going over the strings, how do you not hear the noise from the strings?
They're not connected?
Yeah, it's like an electric violin, so I don't think they don't resonate as much as like as a whatever one would, an acoustic one.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, also the music's really loud, so I think it's just louder. But it happened multiple times, and I would go out and I'd be like, man, I hate
Never
to.
seen it before.
I'd be like, I hate to kick people out when they're like, it's great music, like, and so I went out there because I was a plainclothes guy, right? So I brought like a guy in a uniform out, and we were walking towards him, and I'm like, I don't know, I hate to kick him out. It's great music. I walked up and started complimenting him, and he stopped playing, and the music kept playing, and then I just got annoyed, and I was like, "Get out of here, man!" But
See, we're the complete opposite. I'm a criminal, and he's a cop. See that?
That's funny.
Not anymore. Neither of us. We've moved on.
Yeah, that background. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I stopped doing that. He stopped doing that.
And I think that's really commendable. But
I didn't have a mentor. Back to what we were talking about earlier. I didn't have a mentor. My dad, God bless him. I mean, my dad, I love him. He's my dad. And Valentine's Day, he was the guy going and getting a bunch of roses, handing them out to all the ladies. Everybody loved him. Wow. He had that personality. He was just that guy. He's very outgoing. But he was the most irresponsible person in my life. He didn't raise his kids. My own brother, he never raised them. He had a different mom than I did, and he never raised them. My brother seen my dad, last time he seen him, my brother was like 4 or 5 years old, and then the next time he's seen my dad, my dad was in a casket, and my brother was 15. So he didn't see him for like 10, 11 years.
Wow.
He was never there for my brother. And all the other family was talking so good. He's the nicest guy. He's this, he's that. He's so great. And then my brother's sitting there like, fucking hate this guy. I've always hated this guy because he was never around in my life.
Yeah.
So he was a great guy. He was just very irresponsible.
Yeah. And you certainly can't discount where people come from. And I don't want to sound too harsh when I say that, but at the same time, you don't control the cards you're dealt, but you can still choose like yourself to make 100%. Something out of it.
And that's where I'm going with this.
And
even though I had none of the advantages.
Yeah.
Nobody gave me anything. Nobody gave me any money. I live in Colorado. When I got out, I was in Colorado. I have no family in Colorado whatsoever. There's not even a state touching Colorado that I have family in. Wow. All my family's in Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts. There's a little bit in California. There is none even close to here. All by myself.
It's that concept of burning the bridges, right? Like, was it Cortez, the conquistador? When he landed in the South, he told his men to burn their boats down, so they had no option but to go in to the new territory. It's a concept in business and all types of, you'll hear it all over. But the concept of burning the bridges, like you have no recourse, no family, no connections, and you got to figure it out.
So having said that, I like what you said about you get what you you put into something.
Yeah.
You'll get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair too, like even after I had gotten a mentor when I came back to Colorado after living in Massachusetts, I didn't have anything. I had family, thankfully, but I, had to start from scratch career-wise. And when I needed a job, one thing that just really burns me up when I see people complaining on social media, or like, I don't have TikTok, but I see clips from it, and you see people in Gen Z, younger people complaining like, I had to print out my resume and I'm walking around and applying to jobs. I got this degree, this fancy degree, and I'm applying to jobs at a fast food restaurant or whatever. And I'm just like, I worked at McDonald's after getting my degree, I worked fast food. And when I came back to Colorado, you know what I did? Without anyone asking, I was just like, I need income now. So I went to my nearest shopping center and I walked into every building. I walked into the liquor store, walked to the grocery store, walked to the fast food places. And I was like, are you hiring? And it was just like that. I just kept asking until I found a thing. And I didn't care what it was. I stacked shelves at a grocery store and I worked at a liquor store for a little while. And this was after getting my degree. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I need income. I'm not too good for this work. And, it's easier for me to talk the way I do now that I'm debt-free and have multiple streams of income finally going. But there were so many years leading up to that I was making less than $10K a year, and had to live in my mother's basement because I chose to, cut back. But those were choices I made. I chose to live below my means and to work below my pay grade or whatever. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I get there because I know where I'm going and I'm going to figure it out. And that's something that's sort of inherent to a person, I feel like, whether or not, you have support. So I guess in a way it's like, it's hard to feel bad for people because they really kind of just are that person or they're not sometimes. And if they're not, then it's fine. It's just who you are as a person. But I think
you can change it though.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, for sure. You can go from poverty and fixed mindset to growth mindset and thinking like a wealthy person, no doubt. You can change your mindset, but because it can change, it sort of implies that there's choice too in the first place. So if people are choosing, to do bad or do delinquent stuff versus buy the first house, and sometimes you just have to learn. You have to make the mistakes, and we all screw up, make mistakes. Just hopefully, you can learn from other people's mistakes.
Not do them yourself. I try to do that now.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm done making mistakes for myself. Except for crypto, I made some mistakes there, and then when I bought all those dogs, and I thought I was going to have a dog breeding business.
Oh, the dogs.
Well, you got to go through those, right? Those are your, entrepreneurial ventures. What happened with crypto? Because so without going into too much detail, I do hold some crypto holdings, but it's not like a huge part of my portfolio. I kind of just think of it in the same way I think of commodities or precious metals. So like you can put your money into gold and the gold won't do anything, but at least it's like a store of value. So I kind of think of crypto that way.
Mine is I tried to transfer my crypto and it's still there. It's floating around somewhere in crypto world, but I don't know where it's at. I still have the account. And I emailed, was it Binance or one of those, whoever I had the account with, and they said they can fix it, and I just have to, which I should. I just need to send them. They want a payment for them to put some text on it and fix it because I did the wrong exchange of something. I don't know. It's just some weird thing I don't understand.
It could be tricky, yeah.
But it's quite a bit of money. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I didn't put too much, but like a 30% return, which is pretty good. But I pulled out right away. I didn't because it dropped after that.
I put 20,000 in, and it went up to, I want to say 45,000, but then it went back down to about the amount that I had in, and then I transferred some stuff to another thing that I thought was the right thing, and then it got lost. Yeah, there's a guy who was on my podcast, Amin Soliman. He was laughing at me because he's like, "What'd you do?" He's like, because he knows all about cryptocurrencies and NFTs and stuff, and then he's the one who told me how to kind of fix it or who to contact, and I just haven't followed through, which I should, because they said they were going to charge me, I think it was like $300 to $500 to fix it, and it's like 20 grand. So I should probably do it. I'm just busy.
Yeah, that's understandable.
I don't even know. I don't even know if it's a thing, but
it's nice to know that you have something set aside.
I don't know.
I guess.
I think I just chalk it up as a loss, but I'll try. I'll look into it.
Yeah, I mean, but at least it's better than it going to zero, right? Which would be the thing that would probably happen if you were like to go to a casino.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what it's in right now either.
Well, it's probably not zero because Bitcoin still exists, but depending on how you.
What is it down to now?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'd have to check my phone, but
20 grand maybe a Bitcoin or less. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't checked in a while, but yeah, I kind of. It's just one small thing.
Another example. I hate the stock market. My situation is a little different because I transferred something where I shouldn't have. But
Bitcoin's at 52.
Oh,
52,000.
Wow,
248.
That's
per
pretty
coin.
good.
It's up 0.18% today.
Yeah,
it looks like it shot back up. It shot way up.
But yeah, I kind
a
of
little while ago,
because it's a currency, so I sort of think of it in the same way that I would just think of as cash, but just in a different form. So if you're trading crypto, it's like trading different fiat currencies, like yen for US dollars or euros, so that's kind of how I treat it. But yeah, again, that's not something, I'm not an expert at crypto at all, but at least I didn't jump in when it was popular, like anything like that. It's just like another small part. It's a part of my portfolio. Yeah.
I think my stepsons came to me when it was like $36 a Bitcoin or something. And they said, buy this.
That's the worst.
I said, I'm not going to buy that shit.
Yep.
And they said if they would, because they were trying to get me to put $2,000 in. And they said if I'd have put in $2,000, I don't remember what it turned out to when it peaked out, but it was millions.
I have one stock that grew by 5,000% over the course of a few months. It was just a penny stock though, so it went from being like 80 cents to, or like 5 cents or something like that, to worth $8 per share.
Yeah, those are the ones, huh?
Yeah, and that's always like, this is why time travel movies exist.
So you can go back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would put all my money into this, and it would have grown by 5,000%. I'd be a millionaire. Oh.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the thing too, is that you get into trouble when you think you're smarter than the market, or you try to time things.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do with the investments is to not keep a track on, because again, the emotion, like you were saying earlier, that'll screw you up. If you get too scared or too paranoid about it, really you just want to put it in there and leave it.
You should not be investing in stock if you are a nervous person.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Probably shouldn't even be investing in anything if you're a nervous person, right? Like, for what you do with real estate, could you imagine a temperamental or very fragile person doing?
Well, that's a longer process.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. So if you're going to buy something or sell something, a property, that takes time.
Yeah, that's true.
Even to buy a property, it could take a month. The process.
Higher barrier to entry with that. So
yeah, where a stock you could in 1 minute you could log on and say, I want to get out of this, and just
that's true.
Move your stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot less fungible. I think is the term for that.
And to sell a property can take months too. Mm-hmm. You could sell something quick, but then still paperwork and all that, contract, and
you got to find someone to buy it first, someone to sell it to.
I mean, there was a time where people were buying stuff unseen in Colorado. First day.
Oh, yeah.
But even then, it was still a month-long process.
Oh, yeah. We when we were trying to buy a house, our first house, that was kind of how things were going. Yeah. Like, people, we talked to our real estate agent. She said, well, houses typically go up on Thursday. So if you guys want to buy a house, like, you might have to just call out of work. Like, if I call you in the morning and say there's a house for viewing, like, you should probably leave work and just come to the house and then put an offer down. Which luckily we didn't have to do that. It worked out pretty well, but
the process is long.
For
that, so
that's true. No, that's a really valid point. How do you feel about the housing market? At least maybe not just in Colorado, but if you know anything like throughout the United States, you keep an eye on that at all? Or?
So I have some advice for some younger people, because in Colorado it's impossible.
Right.
Yeah, like I own a lot of stuff here in Colorado, but I bought before stuff went crazy, and that's just the way the time worked out for me.
Right.
So basically, when I got out of prison back then, and I I got into a trade. I went to a trade school. I went to local 208 pipe fitters. So basically they do, HVAC and food processing facilities and hydronic piping, heating, cooling piping, and equipment and just all commercial and industrial stuff. Made a good wage, but lived it within my means. I mean, you can ask anybody who knows me. I wasn't the guy to go out. I wasn't the guy to, I'd buy clothes, but I would just buy what I needed. People made fun of me because I bought a Honda. And they're like, man, that's a girl car. And all the guys were buying trucks and driving around trucks. And I said, I don't give a shit. This shit was cheap, and I don't pay much for gas. And I'm thinking long term. I'm not thinking right now. Later on, I'll have the whatever car I want.
Yeah.
So
delayed gratification.
Yeah. So basically, what I would do is I would just save as much money as I could. And I found out that I could save money. I mean, it's if you just sacrifice. I got a rice steamer. I bought chicken. Chicken was I tear up.
It's
chicken.
not that expensive to live or to eat food.
You can buy chicken. You can buy chicken for just over 50 cents a pound. If you go to Restaurant Depot, if you go to Costco, if you go to the Costco Business Center, you can buy cases of chicken for like 59 cents a pound.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy right now in 2024. And people say, oh, you got a Costco membership costs $100 a year. So if you're saving that much, even if I was broke, I'd still go get a Costco membership because
buying in bulk's always better deal.
Yeah. Over the course of just a month, I'm going to make that back on just whatever I buy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so
frozen vegetables, just yeah, you can get by.
Yeah, I just did this the other week. I was meal prepping, so I just bought chicken, Brussels sprouts, and sweet potatoes, right? Cooked it all like 6 hefty meals, right? And it cost me, it was like 40 and some change. It was under $50, so that's like less than $10 a meal for like a big, I could even cut it in half and do 2 meals with each one. So if you do it, it's cheap.
Yeah, so I did that for years, and I always told myself that it's a pendulum, right? You just sacrifice so you can build money, and then later on, you have the money or whatever you invested the money in, you're going to get double the money because and it's true. Now, some people can't do this, but let's say something cost $5 right now. If you buy that for $5, you really just spent $10 or $15 on that item, because especially if you're young. If you spent $100 on something, you probably just spent $300 to $500 on that item. And they say, well, what do you mean? Because you didn't invest that money.
Yeah.
And you could have had more later on.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I was like stacking. Oh, wow. This month I saved $1,000. Next month I saved $3,000. I'm like, wow, the more I cut out now, the more I sacrifice right now and do without now, the more I can save.
Yeah.
And then I bought my first duplex. And then I bought a commercial property that had 6 stores and 5 studio apartments. The bank didn't want it. They didn't want to do the loan. I had to charm my way into the scenario. The bank said, who is this guy? Because they don't like to sell commercial property to people who don't have experience. And I thought to myself, well, how do you buy commercial property if you never bought a commercial property? I just don't, just these groups of people that have money and they just got that market on lockdown. Who is this blue collar worker who's coming and buying this commercial building? And it actually turned out that the guy who was selling it, it was Mark Goodman from Goodman and Associates. I think that's the name of their firm. They're commercial real estate guys. So he was the real estate agent, the broker for the seller. And he had faith in me because I approached them like, hey, I want to buy this building. And I showed him all the money. I saved up my money again. So now I bought that duplex. Now I had more money coming in because I had a full-time job. I had the duplex that the rent was coming in. So I was stacking money again. And then it was stacking faster.
Snowballs after that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, and so the bank didn't want to do the loan. They're like, who is this guy? And at first I think they were like, yeah, 40% down. And that was $1 million property. And I was like, shit, I don't have 400,000. I can do 300,000, but I can't do 400,000. And so Mark talked to them, and he knew the lady at the bank. In fact, he kind of referred me to them as somebody that could, give me the loan. And he convinced them. He said, just do it. Just try it out. This property's under market. So if he doesn't do it, if he doesn't make the payments, if he fails at it, then you'll get the property and you'll make money on it. So he convinced them to take the loan, and then negotiated with them to get them down to 30%. And then I was able to do the down on that. And then after that, I bought another property, and it just keeps snowballing. But now, back to what I was saying, for young people, because in Colorado it's almost impossible.
Right.
Even me with what I have, it would hurt me to buy another property because everything's so expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do it. But if you're young right now and you really want to get into real estate and you really want to be rich when you're like 50, 60 years old and you want to do it through real estate, I would move out of Colorado.
Yeah.
I would move to the parts of the country that are cheap. Detroit is very attractive. If I was just starting off and I didn't have any,
Texas is better too.
Texas is getting expensive.
It's going
I
up.
almost moved. I almost sold everything here and moved to Texas. This was like 2 years ago. But I went down there and I seen the prices were going up. And then I realized that their property insurance is really high.
Oh, that's another thing I don't think about all the time.
Yeah, so because they do not have income tax in the states, they don't have income tax, Texas being one of them. That's how they recoup their revenue is through property taxes. So they still get the same amount of tax. Just because they're not charging income tax, everybody says, "Oh, this is a great state." No, how are they? They still have to get revenue.
Yeah.
Especially if you go to Texas and you see their cities and their highways, they're not small.
Yeah.
Like they're spending money in Texas on their infrastructure.
Right.
So good place if you want to go work. Like that's why Joe Rogan moved to Texas. I mean, he's not paying income tax on those hundreds of millions he's making, but not a good place to retire. Because if you retire, you're not having any income. So any assets you have are getting taxed higher. So I would move to places that have potential where the property values are the lowest.
Yeah.
And I would move to those places and start buying properties.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And so if you want to do it through real estate, then yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
If you're doing it through real estate.
Right. Or inherit property if you're lucky enough to know someone who owns property here. Family or something like that. So that's probably why I think you see a lot of the younger folks, because we can't afford houses anyway. So you're either bogged down with debt. So if you do have enough cash left over to invest, I think you're seeing a lot of people get into more of the smaller scale things like Stash and Robinhood, which is those apps where you can go and buy like ETFs, exchange traded funds. And so people are kind of doing it smart. And then you always have people who are doing real estate, but like you said, they have to do it in right areas. You do have options too of there are funds that are traded on the market that are real estate funds as well. So you can get involved in, technically it's real estate investing through some sort of an index fund or something, commercial properties and like large companies.
Yeah, is that what those large groups like that? I think was one of them.
Some of them are publicly traded and you can buy shares.
Wasn't there a group called, I want to say Blackwater, but
BlackRock.
BlackRock.
So that's a separate thing. BlackRock is like, if you're into conspiracy theories and like people trying to take over the world, like rich people taking over the world, that's BlackRock essentially is what they do. And the controversy with them right now, I believe, is just that they're buying up a lot of commercial real estate, but they're a huge brokerage firm that
I think they bought a bunch of residential too.
Did I say commercial? Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant residential.
Okay.
They're buying properties that people should live in, like houses. They're
driving up the rental costs.
Yeah.
Which helps me, but it doesn't help
the
average person.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough to really say anything specific, but yeah, it's BlackRock that
I'm wondering if those investment groups are people like that, because then they take that money that
I'm
you
thinking
invested in,
smaller
they buy
ones.
more property. But the same concept, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But you own a share of it, so if there's so if the company has a bunch of properties and they make rental income, if you own shares in it, then part of that goes to you. Assuming they pay dividends.
I think there's a handful of
That's just
companies
the
out
share.
there doing that now.
Yeah.
They're getting investors, just normal people, or even some higher level investors.
Yeah.
And then they're just getting properties and building the portfolio for the.
Yeah, and so that's an option. It's the equivalent of instead of doing what you do and actively investing in real estate, where you manage the property and you own it in your name and stuff like that. That's like the equivalent of buying a stock in a specific company versus it's something like an index fund or a mutual fund, an ETF, where it's a basket of properties instead of like a basket of companies. It's a basket of properties, and your whole portfolio consists of a little bit of ownership of a lot of properties.
Yeah.
But it's the same principle.
Let me clarify too. When I said Detroit, that was just an example. I think you can find those towns in every state. Like, let's take Colorado, for example.
Pueblo? Maybe?
Pueblo is okay. Yeah. But there's another town that's blowing up too that is really small and really cheap right now. And it's Trinidad.
Oh.
It's
okay.
turning into like another Boulder, supposedly.
Okay.
It's kind of like a
lot of hippies?
Yep. Or like another Telluride type of town.
Yeah, it's a cool little. Have you ever been there? It's a cool town.
I've driven through it.
Yeah.
I think on my way to Texas.
Yeah. Going down south, you'll
Yeah.
go through it. Yeah. Yeah, they have recently. I mentioned I was in a band recently. We had somebody reached out to us about playing a show in Trinidad. So they're doing. Stuff's happening, which seems like a weird. If you've been there, it seems like a weird place to go to see a show, because it's like just kind of off the highway in the middle of like some hills. But yeah, it's picking up. And then a few years ago, like Eugene, Oregon, that was a big one. That's a place that blew up recently.
Yeah, by Crescent City up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say you're in California. Well, anybody thinks in California, like, hell no, this is crazy out here. The prices, the taxes, but you can find those towns because the population's growing. This isn't the metaverse. You can't just keep building fake planets on a, what is that? What is the
VR headset?
VR world, and just
virtual
go to your town or your property or whatever. This is the only planet at the moment that we have. So those small towns in every state, you can find them that they have to grow because people need more places to live. And if you invest in those towns, that way you can stay, for people who are, in a place they're close to their family and stuff like that. They don't want to move far. Just find that town. That would be my advice. Find that town if you want to invest in real estate.
Right.
Find that town in your state that is up and coming and go there and just make it happen. Just invest everything you have into that. Into properties, and not just one property. I'm not saying go there and buy a house. You're not going to make any money.
Don't buy a house. A house is a liability.
Yes.
Get a rental property. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Rental properties.
Yes. Perfectly.
Find that town, and you got to work. Oh, back to the work thing, young people. You have to work. See, I had to make the money through a regular job to buy my first property. Then it's like playing Monopoly.
It is
the game of Monopoly.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
If you want to keep buying properties and keep building hotels, you have to have revenue, right? And you have to add to that pool. And how do you do that? Okay, in the beginning, if you just have a regular job, you have to work hard to make money. Then when you get your first rental, it's going to add a little bit more to that so you can expand a little bit more, what you can purchase the next time, and just expand and build on that.
Yep.
But you have to keep working. And you have to work hard.
Yep. There's no such thing as passive income, truly. There's always maintenance required, even if because what you just described is kind of how we think of bucket versus pipeline for water. So for a job, right, if you don't have water coming in, you need water, and you have to go to the lake, and you have to put water in your bucket, and you have to bring it back home, right? That's your job. You go to work, get your paycheck, and you bring it back. And along the way, you want to start investing in digging that pipeline. So you bring your shovel with you to work and you dig that pipeline until eventually you have the lake, the pipeline to your house, and you just turn a faucet and it comes in. But you still have to maintain the pipeline, right? So work never stops.
Absolutely.
Never stops.
Yep.
And then you touched on another thing that I think is part of like the cultural aspect of why it's tough to buy a home too is that you have people buying houses because they think they're supposed to, sort of along the line of going to college, like, oh, well, that's just a thing you do. Well, you just go to college and take out student loans. That's normal. You just get a mortgage. That's normal. And people get in when really it's more feasible. And you touched on this a little earlier, like you looked at your rental income, or not your rental income, but you looked at what you paid for rent versus what a mortgage would cost. And it was like, it's more cost effective to get a mortgage. And that makes perfect sense, right? The math checks out. But some people don't even look at that and they don't realize that, oh, actually, I would save money renting. And I think it can be sort of embarrassing, or like you feel like you're not accomplished as a person if you don't buy a house or own a home. And you get into a bad situation where you're paying a mortgage, and it's literally because what a mortgage is, right? Mortar, death grip. That's what mortgage means. So they've got this.
What does it mean? I've never heard this.
Mortgage, the word mortgage means death grip.
Really?
Yes. Like mortar, like the Spanish. Yeah. Yes. So it's a bad thing to have a mortgage usually.
That should be like a jiu-jitsu move. The
mortgage.
The mortar.
Yeah, that's clever. Yeah, I like that.
I'm the mortgage man.
Oh shit, he's got a mortgage on him. Choking the shit out of him.
There's no way out.
Yeah.
But it only makes sense if you have renters who are helping that, or if it's, just a third of your income. But people like get a house and that's all their income and they have nothing left over, and just, not evaluating their finances and making the proper decisions. And part of that goes back to the education aspect, of course. But it's tricky because sometimes it's smarter to rent, but people want to buy houses they can't afford anyway. It just kind of goes back to buying things you can't afford in general. That's why people are in so much credit card debt. People get useless degrees.
Yeah, and of course I'm rolling the dice, right? I rolled the dice for many years. Now that pendulum is swinging because I could have died. I could have ate chicken and rice for 10 years and then died and not had
anything to show for it.
Had any fun.
Yeah.
I didn't have any fun. Oh, you just worked your ass off and died.
Yeah.
Oh, great life, dude.
Yeah.
I see young people. I kind of admire them a little bit because they do have fun and they do things that I gave up. I
think the tricky thing, because you're right, you do have to make sacrifices, and the amount you sacrifice will be proportional to sort of your goals. If you want to be a multimillionaire, you're going to have to make a lot more sacrifices than someone who just wants to be, making six-figure income. Right, and that's natural. But I think a good thing to remember, too, is you can have fun with any income level. And I think a tricky thing for a lot of folks that I'm still working on, but is budgeting. Do you budget enough to set aside, okay, this goes to savings every time I get a paycheck, and this is for fun, whether it's 10%, something like that. And so no matter how big your paycheck is, you should always set some aside for fun. And I think people kind of get extreme in where, like, I'm just only going to eat beans and rice for 5 years. I'm never going to eat out. Well, no, you should have some funds set aside for your investments, some set aside for emergencies and saving, and then some that's for fun. You should spend some of your money. Like, you should have some fun.
And I think a plan. Yeah,
you need a plan and a budget.
I had a plan. Yeah. I knew when I was going to stop eating chicken and rice.
Yeah.
No, I still will smash some chicken and rice.
Yeah.
But I can also, afford a ribeye now.
Yeah.
So, or Texas State Brazil. That's my spot.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing, too. We call that like having a North Star, right? Having a direction. Like, there's something that you keep your mind on, which helps you get through and push through the struggle.
Yeah.
And so you know your goal.
Speaking of the North Star, that reminds me, I had some other questions for you.
Yes.
So I was curious, what politicians support the and not that necessarily, I guess the NASA is funded by the government, right?
It's government agency, yeah.
Right. So what parties support what's going on as far as, setting up these outposts on the moon and Mars and mining asteroids? What parties are more in support of that?
More in support, generally, I would say Democrats. At least right now in our history, they're the ones who are the more progressive party, and they're more supportive of the sciences. And I'm not saying I'm not making a moral judgment or anything, but because conservatives will be more, obviously, fiscally and socially conservative, generally, Republicans. and then the more liberal parties are going to be liberal with their money, so they're going to be the ones that want to spend more versus not. And because these projects are so expensive and they don't turn a profit right away, right? Building the rockets and saying that stuff, that's costing money more often than not than it's bringing in. So because it's a net negative, probably, but in general, everyone supports space. I just want to make that clear. Like, it's a very bipartisan thing. NASA is not really a left or right thing. It's just
their budgets aren't affected by who's in office.
No, not really, because it's so small. It's like less than 0.1%, if I remember right. Actually, if you don't mind, Mike, would you be willing to look up percentage of the United States budget that goes to NASA? It's like 0.1%. So it's such a small factor that everyone kind of supports going to space. But it's also so expensive that it's not the main priority, right?
But just not space, the other things too, right? That benefit humanity or advance humanity. They're all
satellite technology.
They're all in the same bucket.
Yeah, because it benefits everybody to some degree. Pretty much everyone supports NASA. Like, yeah, no one who's really political, left or right, like dumps on NASA. No one hates NASA, really.
NASA's budget is 0.48% of the $4.7 trillion United States budget.
0.5%. So that's actually more than I thought. That's pretty good. And then the military budget, I think, is like 30 or 40, something like that.
We could have saved all that money we sent to Ukraine and Israel to give to NASA.
We'd be on Mars right now.
We could reallocate funds a whole lot of different ways. Yeah. But yeah, does that kind of answer your question? Like, which political party? I don't think it is one or the other.
I was thinking thinking about like the Artemis mission, right? And the goal of it, which is to populate another planet and move, because like you said before, obviously our time on this planet is finite. We know that, right? So we need to move and spread. And the idea that our time on this planet is finite more aligns with I would say the Democratic Party and the idea of global warming and that our Earth is slowly dying. I would guess that you would probably find more Democrats in line with that mission.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's such a small part of the budget. Probably nobody thinks about it.
Yeah. And I mean, just in general right now, the Liberal Party, the Progressive Party is the one who will, because you'll have, I mean, in general, you have stupid people on every side of things, right? But if you have people blindly following, then it's the leftists who are more likely to blindly follow and just say, "Oh, it's science, therefore it's good," you know. So that aligns with global warming and spreading planet. And it's not that conservatives hate space or hate space exploration. It's just
it's a culture. It's a mentality of
yeah. And I think it's actually swapping a whole lot more too, because there's a whole lot going on politically where there's a lot of unscientific thought starting to become more prominent in leftist politics. So we're kind of seeing a balancing out of that as well. Because, you know, it's the left people who are all like, there are 20 different genders and all this stuff. And that's a little more scientifically controversial.
There's a lot more emotion.
There's a lot more emotion
based.
Yeah.
Did you see what Neil deGrasse Tyson said about all of the genders?
No. What did he say?
He did. I think it was something. Man, when he talks, he uses like the construct and of this and that.
He's very magical in the way that
he said something to the effect of, "How do we know or not know if it is possible, because we haven't even been dealing with this that long scientifically."
Yeah, that's a nice safe answer. He has to be a little more
deep, though. He went deep on it.
Yeah.
Did you see? I had my last podcast. I had Luke Hayes and his father Chris came on.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
So he's cool. A transgender male. Is that the correct term? Would you say?
Born a girl, but
transgender male,
but lives as a man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Trans man. And I've lived and grown up. I like all 3 years of college we had a trans guy with us. Yeah, so it's not like an individual indictment. It's just more like, where are we making lines and stuff, and then how does that expand out into society with things like bathroom and locker room situations and private stuff like that.
Yeah, we talked
then
about
it gets
all
a little
that,
messy.
I look at things kind of like when I think about space and think about us traveling through space and advancing in that direction, I think about Star Trek and and I think about how there were so many different people on the spaceship.
Yes.
Different species of would they be some type of hominoids or something? Was that
humanoid. Yeah.
Humanoid.
Would it be a
aliens.
humanoid?
Yep. What's the anthropomorphic creatures?
What is it?
Anthropomorphic.
What does that mean?
So for instance, we live in the Anthropocene, which is the age of humans. So anthropomorphic, that's like looking like a human with standing up straight, 2 hands, 2 legs. So looking in the shape of a stick figure human. That's anthropomorphic.
That was pretty much everything on Star Trek. Now
they're all humanoid. Yeah.
The other show with Spock. Wait, was that Star? No, that's not Star.
Star Trek is Spock.
Star Wars?
No.
Stargate.
Spock is Star Trek. There's Stargate. There's Star Wars.
There's Star Wars.
Okay, so no, but Kirk. Okay, yeah, Star Trek. I'm thinking.
Yeah, Captain Kirk is
Captain
from
Kirk.
Star
I'm
Trek.
thinking of the older one and the new one.
Oh, Picard versus Kirk. Yeah.
Yeah, Picard versus
Yeah.
Kirk.
Yeah.
So more in the Picard era, there was more the term that you use. Say it again.
Anthropomorphic.
Yeah, kind of like you got limbs and you got eyes and you got a mouth.
You look like a human-ish thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back in the Captain Kirk days, he was fighting. I think there was some crazier looking stuff, like some blobs or something. Now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that when they land on planets, they would see like crazy. Yeah, right. Like blobs or like Yeti looking things or whatever.
Or on Star.
More animalistic type aliens.
Yeah, or like on Star Wars, some of those movies, there'd be like some, especially when they went to the bar. There's always
Yes, the cantina.
Like Jabba the Hutt.
Yep.
Jabba the Hutt
He's a
is a
slug,
good
man.
example. Or the little things that used to be walking around Jabba the Hutt, like the little gremlin things.
Yeah.
But they weren't really kind of like human form. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I mean, this kind of, if we want to tie this back to what we were talking about earlier with robots and AI, are we going to get to the point where they're sentient enough to, have rights and
That's
stuff
another
like
thing.
that?
Like,
That's a
how
whole
far are
other
we
thing.
going to even go with this? Are we going to
Yes.
even be sitting like Picard and all those people that were on this in those episodes, or is it going to be more of AI and robots?
Star Trek's a perfect example of that because they have the character, right, who's a robot. What's Data? Yeah. And they have a great episode actually of a court case where Data's on trial and it tackles that issue of humanity and what rights are applicable because he's a machine.
Yes, I remember that episode actually. I used to watch it when I was a little kid.
Nice.
Yeah. And they've ruled that he was.
Yes.
That he had rights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Stuff like that. And that's kind of why the short-term issues, so we brought in the gender thing, and that's kind of why it's not, if you look at it with a long-term perspective, at the end of the day, we're all still humans, and we're all made of the same stuff. So if we talk with the cosmic perspective, right, we're made of the same stuff, literally. From stars to planets to us, it's all the same stuff. If you can see it with your eyes, that means it interacts with light, which means it has a charge, which means it's either made of protons or electrons. And if that's the case, everything you see is made of the same stuff you're made of. The air you breathe, right, that oxygen goes in, you exhale carbon dioxide. Where did that carbon come from? Came from your body. Your body burned fat, burned sugar, and you exhale that carbon out. That's how you lose weight, is you breathe it out. And you sweat and you pass it through. And stuff like that. So, and what is it with eating, right? You're taking stuff in. You eat the dead cow. The cow becomes you, and you excrete out old dead cells that were part of you. It's the classic ship of Theseus situation, right? Are you aware of that
No.
thought experiment? So ship of Theseus, the principle is you have a ship that sails the ocean, and you have to replace the parts all the time, right? So you replace the hull, you replace the sails, and after enough time, you've replaced every part of the ship, but it looks the same. Is it the same ship?
Right.
Because that's what happens with us, right? Your cells, like your skin, falls off all the time. Cells replace
Isn't it
each other.
every 7 years everything gets replaced?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe so. It's in the book. I looked it up and I did put it in the book at some point. But yeah, it's around 7 years. Your whole body's replaced.
It blows my mind because you
Yeah.
still look the same.
You're in the
still
same
have
shape.
a scar that I had
Yes.
before 7 years ago.
And your DNA is probably mostly the same. Maybe a slight deviation with the division of cells. But yeah, your whole shape is the same. But if you replace all the parts, and we think of ourselves as being different people down the road, right? Like, are you the same 29-year-old kid who just got out of prison? I don't think so, right? You've grown, you've changed, and you're a whole other person. But it's all the same stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah.
A best friend of mine said we're all just congealed energy, you know? It's all the same stuff.
So is it safe to say that we have always existed and we will always exist?
Yes. Yeah. Because that's how I would end my shows, too. I was like, remember that you are the universe looking back at itself. Now, you haven't gone anywhere from that point of view. And the Lion King taught us this, right? This is the circle of life. The lions eat the gazelle eat the grass, and when the lions die, they become the grass, and the grass eats them. Cyclical, right? It's all the same stuff. You've always been here. How old are you? Well, we're roughly 13.82 billion years old. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
So that's the cosmic perspective.
It is. Well, I think we've talked about a lot, man.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I told you we'd be able to kind of keep it in line, hopefully with space, but we'll segue.
No, I was
That's some
glad.
stuff.
I'm glad we
Yeah.
talked about other things because when you first came on, the last episode you did with us, I was thinking afterwards. I was like, man, I totally approached that as if this guy was all he knows is astrophysics, and I was like, man, that's kind of weird. Like people have thoughts about other things for sure.
Yeah, and that's fair. I deliberately make it so that, you know, like with doctors, I like to make this analogy with like the medical field. You have your general practitioner doctors. That's the guy you see, the guy or girl you see every year, and you just get a checkup and you let them know with basic aches, pains. And then if something's wrong with you, you go to a specialist, right? You have specific eye doctors, skin doctors, you know, internal doctors for your digestive system, all those things. Cardiologists. That's like with the scientists, you have biologists, chemists, astrophysicists. You have specialists, and that's where you need to get a PhD. I chose not to go down that path of being a specialist because I wanted to be a generalist. That's kind of just the path that I want to. I want to understand a lot about a lot of different things. I don't necessarily feel like I need to dive deep into one specific topic because I like building those bridges between subjects. That's just how I choose to live my life. So I like doing that broad stuff.
Yeah, everybody should think about everything.
Yeah.
As much as they possibly can.
Yeah. I agree completely. But totally understand, like, if you were just focused on space, because that's what you would probably do. Like, that's your job. That's your title. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But, no, I really appreciate that I was able to come back on and have a little bit broader conversation about stuff. Hopefully I didn't make myself sound like too much of a fool this time. We didn't look up stuff as much this time. So we didn't have as much numbers. So hopefully I'll be safe.
No, you did great, man.
Stuff.
I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for bringing us the gift basket. Appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Maybe next year or something after the next book comes out, we can chat some more.
We would love to have you back. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Yeah, love to be back. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Well, thank you.
That's
Ari.
great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Right on.